Hey guys, welcome back. In this video, we're going to explain the difference between simple functions and complex functions, or simple equations and complex equations. So a simple equation would be something that you make. So for example, it would be coming to a cell and basically adding or subtracting two numbers. So equals B4 plus B5 plus B6. So this is actually what we don't want to do. You never want to use a simple function if you are adding multiple numbers or you are trying to answer a problem that you're having. Basically, you have a word problem and you're using a function to answer that. So in this situation, we're adding multiple cells. We're adding more than two cells together. We want to use what we call the sum function. So when creating any type of equation, whether it's a simple function or a complex, it always starts with equals. So equals basically tells Excel, hey, you're doing some type of math. Now with a simple function, you would just tell the cell reference minus the cell reference, or the cell reference plus the cell reference. With a complex function, you're actually going to use a function. And the name of this function is sum, because we are wanting to add the cells together. We're wanting to find the sum. So I type in the name of the function, and then I use an open parenthesis. And inside of the open parenthesis, I tell it the cell range. So if I just click on B4 and drag down to B8, excuse me, you can see it selected a range there, B4 colon B8. That represents start at B4, go all the way down to B8. If I change that colon to a comma, notice it changes it to B4 and B8. So a colon would be through, a comma would be and. So we want to use the range. Again, you wouldn't want to do equal sum B4 plus B5. Wrong, okay? You'll only get adding right if you use the sum function. Whenever you're adding, you should really always be using sum. If you're using two numbers, you don't have to use it. But honestly, it's so much easier than even writing out a simple function. So always use it. So I'm going to close this up with a closing parenthesis. I'm going to hit enter, and Excel returns the value to me. And rather than doing this over and over again, I can use what we call the fill handle. So if you're looking at this cell right here and you see in the bottom right-hand corner, there's a little square. And if I put my mouse on that square, my mouse turns into a black cross. Now I can click on that and I can drag over. And what it does is it takes that formula and it copies it to adjacent cells, but changes it based on the row or column it's on. We call that relative copying. So now, rather than equals the sum of B4 through B8, now it's C4 through C8. And if we go to the next one, D4 through D8. And the next one, E4 through E8. So the fill handle allowed us to take that formula and copy it to the other columns or cells. And again, it used what we call relative copying, where Excel said, okay, relative to where I'm moving, I'm going to use that column or that data that's in that row or column. All right, so again, we can do that on this total row. So this time, if we don't want to manually type it out, we can go to the home ribbon. We can find the editing group, and we can click right here on auto sum or click on the drop down. But again, we're using the sum function. It puts it in there. Notice it automatically highlights the cells for you. It sees the data that's present. We hit enter. And then again, we click on the cell and we use the fill handle to apply relative copying, where it takes that formula and it copies it to the next row using the cells relative to the row it's copying to. Okay, so that would be addition. So let's actually go down to the bottom here and notice it says sheet 1. It has a little plus sign. Click on the plus sign. It's going to give you a brand new sheet, because in Excel, we are working with workbooks, not spreadsheets. In the workbook, you have spreadsheets, but Excel itself is a workbook. So I've added a second spreadsheet to my workbook, and now I'm just going to type in some numbers. Let's type in 56, 76, 84, 200. Okay, again, a simple function would just be simple subtraction. So if I want to subtract these two numbers, I'm going to do equals A1 minus A2. So that would be our simple equation or simple function. And again, I can use that same technique of using the fill handle to fill over. And now if I double click here, I can see it's done the same thing, but it's changed it to the row or column that I'm on. So B1 minus B2 instead of A1 minus A2. All right, so that's it for basically simple versus complex, sum versus subtraction. Remember, don't use difference, just use a simple equation and subtract. And then again, the fill handle, using that to fill over. See you next time.